Hello, everyone. Oh, I think I'm supposed to be introduced. So. Okay, I'm Katryna Starks. I work with Judith Pintar at the University of Illinois, and I'm here talking about world building through time, architecture that tells stories. And this is one of those kind of experiences where I just had like a brain thing. So I don't have a background in architecture, but just looking at the world around me, my approach to world building is that our world is amazing, and the more we learn about it, our world, our architecture, the way that we do things, it informs our storytelling, because we've got amazing, fascinating worlds, like micro worlds here basically on Earth. So I'm gonna start. All right, so this is the same, it's an expanded version of the picture that was on my opening slide. So basically what happened was, I was super fortunate at the University of Illinois. We are building a partnership with Lusofana University in Portugal. And so we went over to Porto to meet them. So this is Porto, Portugal. And Lusofana University is behind me. We went in, we talked to the teachers, that was lovely. I walked outside and saw this, and I took a picture. And I was trying to take a picture of the lovely fortification wall that you see here. And then I got back to the hotel and I was looking around through my pictures, and I realized that what fascinated me, obviously this is fascinating, but the little house in the corner, that looking thing, I was like, wow, that's really modern and this is really old. And I was wondering, what's the deal between those two buildings? So I found out from my friend that this is actually part of the Fernandine Wall of Porto, built in 1376 by Dom Ferdinand. And this wall with the fortification basically was built around the city of Porto and by the sea in order to protect it. So, you know, those times in literature or games where you read about these big, huge walls that kept people from storming in from the sea, that's one of those. And I don't know when, I couldn't find out when this little building over here was built, but I did take a different picture later on when I realized that there was some kind of time travel going here instantaneously. So this is one of the most fascinating pictures that I took. There are 648 years in this picture. So the Ferdinand walls were built in 1376. You can see those lovely walls here. You can see the buildings around. One of those buildings looks a little bit old. There's the dome. I'm not sure when it was built, but you see the dome. And then you can see some of the high-rise looking buildings. These are probably, I would say, 1980s, 1990s, basically kind of late-ish 20th century, if I had to guess, just by the building style. And then we've got cars, and of course, cars last long, but not that long. So we're probably thinking no earlier than, you know, kind of the 2010s. And then we have these lovely bicycles here. And while bicycles have been around for a while, the bicycles that you basically, it looks like these are the type where you kind of use an app, you rent the bike, and then you take it wherever. Those happened right around 2014. I think one of the few companies that, the first companies that did that, they were founded around 2014-ish. And then there's me. I took this photo in 2023. So, we are basically looking through time. And so I thought, you know, there are times when I think in games and in all sorts of things, except for if you're live, these would be districts. There would be a district here, a district here, a district there. And the way that we build cities is we build over top of what we have. And so this is how we actually world build through time in reality. Similarly, these pictures here, this is the ruins of Porto, Portugal. Portugal was founded in 1143, if I remember correctly. So there were buildings and structures, and of course some of them have been rebuilt and dilapidated, but these are some of the very first buildings in Old Porto. And again, you would think this, you know, it would be in a game or some sort of fantasy setting. It would be in some remote jungle. You travel out to the place like this. You go through these, you might find hidden catacombs underneath them. It's all dilapidated, and you would be in one spot. And then the picture next to it with our lovely metro with this beautiful Portugal city behind it, you would get on a plane or a train, or you take a really long car ride to get there. In this picture, this is actually the same spot. Here, so you can see the railing. I'm leaning over the other side of it that's behind me in this photo. And so this is leaned over the railing, and then this is standing up and turning around. And that's the same spot. So if I didn't think to take a panoramic shot at the time, but if I had, you would literally see the scenery change. So the idea that, I was fascinated with the idea that we take old spaces and we build on top of them and we build around them, so that it's not necessarily, and even in this picture, you see the ruins, but then you see a little staircase, and the city is literally here. It's in the midst of what we're doing. So these are not remote, these are smashed together. Similarly, we've got Lusofona University in Lisbon, Portugal. This building, I couldn't find the actual date that this building was built. These are all over the place, so they don't find them fascinating ever in Portugal enough to write about unless it was a notable building to begin with. But you do see a little bit of the time effect. This is an older building, and then you can see by the styling of this one that it's newer, and this one as well. But because Lusofona is a university, so they've taken over a very old building, and so you see a lot of ancient history when you look at the building. But what's going on inside? Well, that is going on inside. So, again, in a fantasy setting or some sort of setting we made up, we would probably think, if this is going on, it's probably in this, one of these buildings right here, not in this one. So it's a mashing up. They had an old building. Economically, in reality, we don't have the economics to tear down the old buildings and rebuild over them. We also don't have the space to go find cities that have just lots and lots of land, and the city has been completely waylaid so that we can build everything new on top of it. And so we have this mashup of old and new, ancient and super modern going on. So now we're changing gears a little bit. This is Italy. And this is a fascinating story of this building. So we have a lovely Roman statue. This is actually Rome. And then we've got this beautiful mosaic. And when that was built, that was a very controversial building. Citizens protested against it because of the company that owns it. So citizens protested against it. One of the citizens, one of the protests was a group of cooks came out, and they stood in front of that building and they cooked spaghetti perfectly al dente, and they gave it away to the people that were coming to see the building. And the reason why they did that is because, well, and then, so in another spot, this is a restaurant. There are different versions of this restaurant. There are branches to the restaurant. It's a chain. It's in more than one place. So over here, they were building, and they broke ground to build the restaurant, and they found this beautiful ancient road underneath it. And they decided to go ahead and just preserve that by doing something modern. They put glass over it so that you can see the old road underneath, and they built the restaurant on top. The reason why this is so controversial, the first one more than the second, is this is McDonald's. So this was the first McDonald's in Rome, and of course the Italians, I mean, putting McDonald's in a place that was in a city that is literally known for its food is probably a little controversial. That was back in 1986. They've gotten over it. There are McDonald's all over Rome. But there was also the rule that you have to preserve what's there. So you don't see the big traditional golden arches. They did not take this and turn it red and yellow. The rules were, you're coming into our space, literally, when in Rome, you do as the Romans do. So they weren't allowed to go and change all of these things. They had to basically blend in with what was there and be, they could say who they were, but be really unobtrusive compared to the places that we know, that we associate with this company. So again, the melding of old and new. And of course here, in this picture, they decided to take the architectural features of what's old and put it in the new restaurant. And then when they found the road is actually old, and they decided to take modern technology with laying the glass over it and preserving the old within the new. Now this is an example of a city and a video game that actually kind of overlap each other. So in one scene, you see the port in Gdansk, Poland, which I'm probably pronouncing wrong. And then the Novigrad docks are in The Witcher 3. So you can see the elements of modeling that we've done in games of modeling cities. But that is, and the port, goes a really long way. It's very old there, but it's not all that you see in the city. So in Novigrad, which we'll see a little bit more of, this is Novigrad. These are the docks in Gdansk. And you see it looks like, oh, you've gone through time. And the time, is kind of set and everything looks similar. However, this is the Polytechnic University in Gdansk, Poland, and they have done old and new as well. So this is the old building where they've put their Polytechnic University, and then they've had occasions to build a new building that attaches to the university. It's still part of the system. And that's the one that you see over here, which is much, much newer. So same university represented by two different spaces that are very, very different. And then this is the World War II Museum in Gdansk, Poland. World War II, it's not as ancient as, for instance, the Gdansk or Porto. However, it's a very, very modern building to house something very old. And that could be that they just wanted to modernize it, or it could be a statement. It could be that they decided that taking this World War II museum, which is definitely back in our history, but putting it in a modern building could make a statement that we don't need to forget, because we will repeat our history if we forget it. So this is something that happened back then, but it can also happen now if we let it, and in the future. So it's kind of like the architecture and the things within it combine to create a social warning. So I found this picture. This is not mine. I didn't make it. It's an art station. But this person was doing a study on building a cyber city. And they took this study, and they had this one here on the left, my left, and then they had the one in the center and the one on my right. And I'm thinking that in most places what you'll see is someone might see they create the purple one, and that looks very, very cyberpunk, and it looks very futuristic. And then you could maybe have a day scene that looks more like the middle. But the authentic one, the way that we would probably build up, this is supposed to be Los Angeles here, the way that we would probably build up Los Angeles is actually the very first one that you see here. We would take all of the things there, and we would probably just attach our future to what is there, to the old. And so basically that was something that fascinated me. I think I'm going to end with a few examples. So this is We Happy Few. We have districts. And again, there's that separation that we see in games. So we have districts that look one way, and in all of these 4 places, you travel. You travel through bridges, you travel through portals, you go through different places. And so these are all in the same game, but they're in completely different settings within that game. And similarly, we've got The Witcher 3. We've got the island is a little bit different because, of course, you're surrounded by water. You would have to travel to get here. But we see Novigrad, we see Kaer Morhen, which is in the mountains with ice, and we see White Orchard, which is kind of very country compared to the cities. And again, you go to these different places, and they're in very different spots in the game. However, the way that we live, these would be melded into each other a little bit more. So just hoping that this is a little more insight into the way that we build worlds and the way that we can travel through time in the same space and create a history around our cities and around that basically creates a history in the game. So that these become not just settings, but stories in themselves. Thank you.